Ok, bienvenidos a todos, muy buenas tardes, espero que hayan tenido un muy buen almuerzo. Como vemos allá, entonces les damos la bienvenida. ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Alguien aquí que habla español?
Un poco.
¿Quién habla español? ¿Un poquito?
Yo.
Bueno, perfecto. Entonces, ¿quiénes somos? Hagámonos presentes en el salón, compartiendo quiénes somos, cuánto llevamos como miembros del magisterio y a qué nivel cumplimos con nuestras responsabilidades para educar a la juventud de esta hermosa ciudad que tanto lo necesita para que en este sancocho de diversidad a veces nos perdemos entre tantos sabores, olores y colores, ¿no? Entonces, ¿quién quiere comenzar? ¿Quién quiere comenzar? Ok. ¿Quiénes somos? Hagámonos presentes en el salón compartiendo. ¿Compartiendo? Ok, ¿quién quiere comenzar? ¿Quién dijo que hablaba español? ¿Puede? Bueno, comience por favor. No señora, comience por favor. Y rápido, solo en español, solo español. No English. Solo español.
Buenos días, yo soy Miss Pauta y soy maestra de los niños de tercer a 5 grados. Una maestra de teatro, es mi primer año. Y gracias por invitarme.
Muy bien, muchísimas gracias. Ok, entonces, ahora, ¿para la derecha o para la izquierda? ¿Para dónde sigue?
A la izquierda.
Para la izquierda, ok.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Yo soy Juan, trabajo para la compañía Roundabout Theater Company. Llevo un año trabajando para la compañía y soy el director de programas escolares.
Muy bien. Next.
Me llamo Alex.
¿Y cuánto tiempo lleva en el magisterio?
Grand Street Campus.
Well, and see. Thank you so much. Anyway, sorry about that craziness. Welcome to our beautiful workshop. And we just wanted to, kind of put you a little bit on the shoes of many of us that come into this country and don't speak English, and then we're encountered with a lot of, language-heavy situations where we feel scared, right? Even when we speak the language, right? It's so scary because there's so many words, and you could be saying, but I have pretty slides, and it's on the board with a picture, right? With visuals. What's wrong with you, right? And we have master's degrees and stuff. So to think about our young people coming in is pretty scary. Anything that you observed, anything that you feel that you'd like to share about being in that situation? Yes, please.
I immediately looked, I'm not sure of your name, because I was like, okay, I know a little Spanish, and if I can discern what she says, then I can pick 4 words that I could say. And I know that's exactly what my students do, because it'll be exactly what the person next to them said, or maybe what I have said, and that's coming back to me because it's that's what they were able to get, Yeah.
So just a quick assessment, right, of who can and cannot speak Spanish. Those could be your leaders.
I love that you slowed down though and spoke louder.
Because that makes it better, right? That makes it okay, everybody understands when that happens, yes. I know. So, welcome. Hi, how are ya? So we just had a situation where I was speaking crazy Spanish and just asking everybody to introduce themselves, and got very frustrated because nobody knew what they were saying, and I just kept going and I say in Spanish only. So we had this scary stuff, and now we're talking about, what that look felt like and how that's relevant to our practice. Anybody else? Yes.
So I was preparing what to say, but I felt like my students are even if I have something I feel like I could do it successfully, I'm so nervous about messing it up because I'm not as confident. So even the students that have some grasp of what's going on might still be hesitant. So I kind of felt that holding back where I'm I took Spanish for 7 years. Why am I freaking out right now? But
Absolutely. And when you don't have something to grab onto, right? To hold on to, can I write it down first so I can process it, and then I'll be able to contribute? So thinking of the fact that it's going to take longer for somebody to be able to do something, it's going to be important, right? Yeah.
Also, our brains have the amazing ability to, like, if we don't understand, we can just, like, click off. And it's just like, oh, now I'm just gonna blur. It's just a blur, and then I'll wait until I catch something. Which I do see kids do a lot, where they're like, okay, I'm just gonna turn off for a while until Miss Lobo comes up to me and then talks to me in addition.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And how important to have some sort of tool or something to grab onto so you don't get lost so easily. Because he's super scary. Yeah.
When I saw it and I heard this, I started feeling ever so slightly embarrassed because I have done this. I have stood in front of a class and they don't understand, so I just get slower and louder, and I know better. Because I've sign language too. I mean, I've thrown it.
right?
I mean, I have done like, oh, that was me. Sorry.
Absolutely. And the frustration of like, why aren't they listening to me? I spent hours on this slide. These ungrateful people don't want to learn anything. I hate teenagers. What? I'm sorry, yes?
It wasn't a waste because I don't understand Spanish when you speak, but I was trying to strategize and figure out if this guy would move his big head, I could read the entire thing. So I was trying to figure out what I could understand and sort of strategize that way.
But instead of having like a list of words or something more accessible, you're gonna write on medieval Spanish for what? Right? Totally.
I didn't know it was medieval.
Well, even as someone who speaks Spanish fluently, I was still scared to participate because I felt uneasiness. And just coming into a situation where you feel uneasy is so intimidating. You know what I mean? So I feel for them.
Yeah, totally. Especially being a teenager.
Yeah.
You always want to look cool. It's just all these things are gonna add up in your head. Very good. Anything else that came out
My
for you?
first thought was, where's my Google Translate, which I use every day in my school. I speak into it, and so in some ways, I think that makes me not have to work as hard to learn because I know I have
We
to
had
approach.
this really cool, and now that we have to put our phones away and we cannot use the phones at all,
Students can't,
it's really, right?
in my school.
I know, right? So it's a tool that you can actually use, I think, sometimes, but you know, it's messy. But yes, there are tools in the world. Yes.
You talked about translanguaging in the earlier session, and so this was an activity where you set a hard rule, no English, sort of fiercely, no English, as often can happen in a class, but I think that led to an approachable or like an appropriate level of challenge for some of us who do speak Spanish, where we were like nervous but could do it, and so overcoming that nervousness is, I think, a healthy level of challenge. But then there's a lot of people in the class who don't speak Spanish or speak other languages, and so it wouldn't be an appropriate challenge, and so they would shut off or like, whatever you said, blur out or ignore the rest of the lesson, which is the opposite of what you're trying to do with what this says, which is to be present and to introduce ourselves. So it would miss the mark of the goal.
Thank you.
So I was an English language learner until about 4th grade, and I remember being in classroom settings where I was translating for a newcomer in my class and having a teacher say to me, don't speak to them in Spanish, we're in America, we have to speak English, that's the language here. Now I'm a little bit on the older side, so this was a while ago, but those are experiences that even if you are fluent in both languages can be really intimidating because you feel like you're going to be punished for helping a friend or helping a classmate, right? So the teacher is thinking, I'm doing them a favor because they have to practice their English. You're just making everyone dislike you.
I hated school. I hated it because I went to kindergarten not knowing any English whatsoever in a district town where I was probably the only person in the whole town and my family were the only people in the whole town that spoke Spanish. So back then, kindergarten was only half a day. So kindergarten is what pre-K is now, right? So their solution for me as the only Spanish speaker was to put me in both halves. So I had to do everything twice while everybody just had a half day. I had to do everything twice and learn everything twice. And that created such a stigma, and it made me hate school. I can't even believe that I grew up to be in education, because if you had told me, I wouldn't believe you. It made me hate school. It really just created, it kind of like almost made me like a pariah in a way for the rest of my years at elementary school, until I found my niche in chorus and theater. And like literally, I'm only in education because of chorus and theater, because I hate academics, because of the way that they handled me as an ENL student at that time.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
So talking about that, I think it's beautiful that we have the power through theater to not cause that on people. And you know, I wonder what, you know, and what we're here today is to talk about what strategies and what things can we use together, right? To be able to make sure that our kids don't hate our school and hate us, because nobody wants to live like that, right? All right, so should we do the same activity but modify it, see what happens? Yes? Okay, let's try it again, ready? And if I can have everybody give me a 3, 2, 1, action. Maybe we can get started, all right? And everybody say, 3, 2, 1, action. Okay, buenas tardes. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Muy bien. Bienvenidos. So today we're going to introduce ourselves. Muy bien. So, vamos a jugar un juego. This is a game. En el juego, student A dice esto. Everybody answers esto. Student A dice esto. Everybody dicen esto. Student A dice esto. And everybody dice esto. Entonces, Ali Lan Chu. That's how we say hello in Quechua, the beautiful language of the Incas in Latin America. So we can practice that too, because in my classroom, for example, we have a lot of people that speak Quechua. So we're going to learn that too. Ali Lan Chu. Can everybody say Ali Lan Chu?
Ali Lan Chu.
Mi nombre es Helio. Mi nombre es Helio. That's my name, right? Mi nombre es Helio. And everybody says, hello, Helio. Soy maestro de high school. Soy maestro de high school. Maybe tú, maestro de middle school o maestro de elementary school. Okay, so I say, soy maestro de high school. And everybody?
We love theater teachers.
Yes, we do. Very good. And now llevo. For how long you've been teaching? So llevo is a magical word that is going to carry all that. So llevo 2 años. So I've been teaching for 2 years. Siendo maestro, being my teacher. I have been a teacher for 2 years. Llevo 2 años. I actually llevo 16 years. Llevo, I'm not old, not being old, right? Llevo 2 años siendo maestro. And I'm sharing for how long you've been a teacher. And then everybody answers, wow, 2 years. Thank you for sharing. Is that good? Very good. So I know that Juan, our amazing student, speaks a little bit of Spanish. So why don't you also model for us so you can actually get us started?
Ali Lan Chu. Ali Lan Chu. Mi nombre es Juan.
Hello, Juan.
Soy maestro de todos los grados.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 20 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 20 years. Thank you for sharing.
Ali Lan Chu, mi nombre es Alex.
Hello.
Alex.
Soy maestro de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Vamos a decir 19.
19.
Llevo 19 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 19 years.
Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Felicia.
Hello, Felicia.
Soy maestro de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 3 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 3 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Kim.
Hello, Kim.
Soy maestra de elementary school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo, ¿cómo se dice? 7 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 7 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Robin.
Hello, Robin.
Soy maestra de todos los grados.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 20 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 20 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Yoshira.
Hello, Yoshira.
Soy maestra de middle school, de drama y maestra de disciplina.
We love theater teachers.
I don't know about that. Llevo 13 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 13 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Martha. Martha.
Hello, Martha.
Soy maestra de elementary school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 10 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 10 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Edward.
Hello, Edward.
Soy maestro de high school, pero no maestro de theater. Llevo muchos años siendo maestro.
Wow, 20 years. Thank you for sharing. I thought you didn't speak Spanish. That's amazing.
No hablo español, no entiendo.
Oh, there you go.
Yo soy, I tell my students, yo estoy en radio, yo transmito, pero no recibo.
I love that. Yes, I love that.
Suficiente de hablar con los padres de mis estudiantes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Sarah.
Hi,
Hello, Sarah.
Soy maestra de middle school.
We love theater teachers.
First year.
Llevo un año.
Un año.
Años. Siendo maestra.
Maestro.
Wow, 1 year. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Caitlin.
Hello,
Caitlin.
Soy maestra de high school.
We
We love theater teachers.
Llevo
19.
19 siendo maestra.
Wow, 19 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Elizabeth.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Soy maestra de middle school.
We
Love theater teachers.
Llevo 25 años.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
De nada.
Thank you.
Alilan Chu, me llamo Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
Soy profesor de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 5 años siendo profesor.
Wow, 5 years. Thank you for sharing.
De nada.
Hola, Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Kathleen.
Hello, Kathleen.
Soy la maestra de elementary school, teatro.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 10 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 16 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Jason.
Hello,
Hello, Jason.
Soy maestro de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 2 años siendo maestro.
Wow,
2 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilanchu, mi nombre es Max.
Hello, Max.
Soy maestro de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 2 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 2 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Erica.
Hello, Erica.
Soy maestro de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 7 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 7 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan.
Soy maestro de universidad.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 21 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 21 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Catherine.
Hello, Catherine.
Soy no maestro, ¿cómo se dice? Arts administrator.
De arte.
Yeah.
De administración.
We love arts levo nueve siendo maestro.
Wow, 9 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Marian.
Hello, Marian.
Soy maestra de middle school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 5 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 5 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Lenore.
Hello, Lenore.
Soy maestra de high school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 2 y media, middle, 2.5.
2 y medio.
2 y medio siendo maestra.
Wow, 2.5 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Jess.
Hello, Jess.
Soy maestra de elementary school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 8 años siendo maestro.
Wow, 8 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Maggie.
Hello, Maggie.
Soy maestra de middle school.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 7 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 7 years. Thank you for sharing.
Alilan Chu, mi nombre es Raquel.
Hello, Raquel.
Soy maestra de elementary.
We love theater teachers.
Llevo 16 años siendo maestra.
Wow, 16 years. Thank you for sharing. Very good. Yay, and scene. Yay. Very good. So what came up for you this time?
Less stress.
Less stress. We're actually laughing, right? Like people participated and felt accomplished. That was great. What else?
It's rehearsal. It's like got a theater connection, absolutely. Practice, rehearsal, literal script. Like, yeah.
Perfect. So in the beautiful world of theater, we can actually have a script. I also script my turns and talks. And then that I have something to hold on to, right? And many times I would have that printed so they can just fill it in before they actually speak. Like you were saying, like, right? I know Spanish. If you give me a second, I'll be able to do it. So that's more helpful. Very good. What else? Anything else? Yeah.
I was sort of interested in hearing the pronunciation of people who are more fluent. Again, because being dyslexic myself, trying to read the thing is just a nightmare anyway.
Absolutely.
So then when it's things like huevo, again, I'm reading, going la-la-levo, like going, and then hearing it is like, oh, okay, so that was actually more helpful for me, just hearing it modeled and going, that. So I realized I got it wrong, hearing other people say, oh, okay, but I think now, when I see that next time, I'll have that. So
the
it's
power
like,
of rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
And the multiple points of entry. Very helpful. Yes, what else?
Building on what you just said, this activity had us speaking as a chorus, and we had a lot of opportunities to listen to each other and speak in a low stress way. So that's a great way to practice with students. As an ENL teacher and theater teacher, that's a great overlap. And there's lots of opportunities for that in theater productions, or like you said, theater rehearsals or practices, where there's a chorus of people who speak together and they get a lot of chance to speak, but they don't have to be brave, or they don't have to be pressured to speak individually. That's pretty powerful.
Very good. And then the power of modeling, the power of relying on students that might be able to support you. Be like, okay, I know you can do it. You want to try it first? Let's all listen to it. Oh, we got it, right? Also in the process, being like, you don't need to learn in Spanish how to say middle school or elementary school. You can say that in English, because the point of my lesson is not that you learn that. The point of my lesson is that you can actually talk. So picking and choosing what is it that can be used in the native language or not, or just opening the door to feel comfortable. Because in the translanguaging stance, we don't have different brains for different languages. We understand language as a whole unit. Like all of these things, like we're doing Quechua, we're doing Spanish, we're doing English, we're all communicating, we're laughing, we're smiling, we're being productive. That's kind of like, what we're trying to do.
And I was going to say that though it felt like that lasted a long time.
I know.
Right? The repetition is really important, right? Especially what you were saying about students hearing it multiple times. I think sometimes the instinct can be to rush through it, right? Like this is taking too long, I want to move to the next thing. But that repetition and giving the time to it is really important.
And the combination between the repetition and the choral speaking, right? Like if a student were to get it the first time,
It doesn't matter because it's covered up by other people and they can build the confidence in the repetition.
People were adding things too, and we were like, no, I didn't say you could say that, and that's okay to, like, sometimes I think we're like, but that's not what I said to do, and like letting go of that, and it's not that important.
I think it's very important, and I don't know, it's important for your kids to feel comfortable to say 19, how do you say that, right? Como se dice? Like people are saying that, to feel comfortable saying that, instead of shutting down and not wanting to do anything.
We had little professor.
I know. Good for you. Very good. Yes. So maestro is a very American thing for me. In Latin America, we use profesor. But professor sounds like college here, right?
I wanted to know, because you said llevo, but llevo is okay too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's the different pronunciations.
What country do you?
Colombia.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Very good.
So I was very interested in that.
Yeah, that's fantastic that you picked up on that. Yeah, and in the same way, when with our language learners and our students that are so aware of this, it's interesting what they're picking up on in the process, right? But it's the magic of theater where we can do these things and then people can get what they need to get out of it. So if you go to the next one, anybody else?
We're just going to say with this idea of questioning or saying like, oh, how do you say 19 in Spanish? When I'm in class working with L's, you can often bounce those questions back to a student who might know, and that's a great way to encourage and kind of scaffold students asking each other, and then let that student who does know another language to be sort of celebrated or like play a role in class because they know how to say something.
I was excited to see how when you were wondering how something was said, you wouldn't look at me, you would look at Juan, right? Because he's your ally, he's in your team, right? So that's definitely something that always happens.
One thing I would say is that if there's specific vocabulary that you're focusing on in that moment, you could also have that visually up. So you could have the numbers and then the way it's written out in English, right? On the wall perhaps, or on the board, so that they can refer to that as a reference. But you can also help each other out.
And that also made me think of like expressions, like how do you say this? What does black mean? Those are like expressions that can be present somewhere, so the kids know that that's how you say, what does that mean, or whatever. Yeah, those tools. You want to give them the tools to be able to, figure out. Yes.
I'm going to throw a curveball at
Please,
you, and
absolutely.
you might have good feedback on it. So I literally have Spanish, Russian, and Turkish in the same class with zero English. Zero. So I'm like on the translator. There's only so much.
We're going to get into some tools or some resources.
Yeah, I'm talking, this is like real life stuff that's happening.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're running this, we're in New York.
Yeah.
Right? So you might have like 5 languages in a room.
Oh yeah, we
so we recognize that that's also the case.
And I'm excited to see how, at the beginning, we were not able to be productive at all. But then with things like the scripting and the speaking and the rehearsal and all these things, there is. even for somebody who's just learning to speak Spanish, you still feel accomplished and were able to process. So interesting. But anyway, in addition to multiple languages, there is a lot of wonderful things going on with our language learners that we should be aware of. And one of those things are like, the stages of language acquisition and production. Because like you were saying, like you're like a radio, you produce, but it's all about input but not output. And in the process of language acquisition, we're going to see that a lot. A lot of our students will be able to process and do the input, but then how long does it take for them to be able to, move on from being radios and being AI and communicate with us? So these, in the slides, I'll share that with everybody so you can see them. But just be aware that somebody might not be able to speak at all at some point. Somebody might not be able to do that. And, what other ways that are not words can you use to assess whatever it is that you're assessing in the theater classroom? Or to gather the data, because we're all talking about the data, right? The data. So what does that look like, right? What kind of comments you're writing about the things that they do, that those comments can be the data that you're using to track somebody's progress. So not everybody will be ready. And then in terms of writing an essay and being, having that advanced fluency, the general consensus, and I'll have links there to different articles, that it takes 5 to 7 years for somebody to be able to do so. And this is not taking into consideration people who are new to print. So that's another twist that we have to deal with. But yeah, so be aware of that and not expecting everybody to be talkative and then trying everything out at the beginning. If you want to go to the next one. Very good. So I have different things that we can think about, different things. So translanguaging is this beautiful, theory that tells us just whatever languages are present in your classroom, find a way to celebrate them, even if it's with just words or things like that are happening. And then of course the visuals are a very important strategy. But then in terms of the visuals, we had a visual in the first slide that was useless. So how are we choosing, strategically what we use as visuals? Scripting the tasks, just like we did, is something that is helpful. The body system that we talked about, having somebody in the room. Pacing yourself, because things are going to take a little longer for language learners, right? So what does that look like? The power of modeling everything you do. For example, if you're having a group and your group have to create something, fishbowling is really helpful for language learners. So get a group in the middle with everybody just watching and have them do it and speak through it, because I might not be able to understand all your instructions, but I can see what they're doing, so that's going to help me. We have also keeping it simple. So at the beginning, in the very first time that I did it, I was like, hello everybody and good afternoon. I hope everybody had a good lunch. We're going to get ready now for a very productive workshop. And then in the second time I did it, I was just like, good afternoon. And everybody said good afternoon. That was it. So especially as theater people, I don't know, it might be a stereotype, but as theater people, we like to explain ourselves. Because the more we explain ourselves, the better people get the message. So that could also become a problem as a theater teacher, right? And then chunking info. Chunking info is just, making it simple. Making it simple, doing like small parts of it, right? Spending a beautiful day on 4 lines from a play could be more meaningful, right? Than trying to go through, the first act in these 45 minutes, right? So chunking information can be helpful. Can you go to the next one? Very good, perfect. Physicalizing it, doing it in the video, doing it with your body and then writing it down. And then also the graphic organizers, all these different things that we already know, sentence starters, word banks, routines, things like that. Something also important to be aware of is the culture that our students come from, right? I was talking about this in the other workshop where my friend from South Korea, because I was a language learner when I came in, but I came directly to college, and we were talking about this, and she said, these people open the door for me and hold it and stare at me. And I go through it, humiliated, And the last thing, and then I run. And then they tell me that I should have looked at them in the eye and be like, thank you, and then move. That is a lot to ask of a person. But in American culture, right, you open the door, you say, thank you, oh, sure, go ahead. But for somebody to look at you in the eye and be like, thank you, and then move on, that's a lot. Because where we come from, is humiliating that somebody, I didn't ask you to open the door for me. I don't need that in my life. Why are you doing this to me? And you're looking at me now. I just gotta run.
I remember I was teaching in Tanzania, and a person that was a colleague there had told me how she'd been there before, and she was being very American in the class and was like posing a question and was saying, there's no right or wrong answers, just say what you think is right. And the student had to say, like, if we get the answer wrong here, they hit us.
Oh.
So, like they might come from a culture where there's no wrong answer, right? And so I think you have to be aware of like the culture of where the students are coming from, being culturally responsive, and understanding like why they might be shy in participating in certain activities or in certain conversations or discussions.
Yes. And also understanding like, volume, speaking with volume, being present, that's super, super American, right? That, where I come from in Colombia, it's called altaneria. That needs to be punished.
What is it called?
Altaneria. How dare you get up, altanero? How are you gonna look at me in the eyes and then ask me for a favor?
Yeah.
Can I have a pencil? It's like you don't say that to a teacher.
Right.
You should have a pencil. So
I think the parents too, like they think the teacher is like the end all be all. Like whatever you say, you know what I mean? Like it's your job. Like that's culturally something we have to adjust to too. Like it's like this is what you do. Like why are you telling me that I need to help my child at home like with the work? That's your job. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like I've heard that a
absolutely.
lot. Like you know what
Why
I
do you
mean?
mean there is no right answer? Then what's your job? What are you, right?
Right.
I've had kids say to me, but you know the right answer, right? So we can learn it for the test.
Right.
That's different culture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's like, tell me your opinion. What do you think is the motivation of the actor for walking into this room? And you're like, you're a teacher, you should know.
Right.
Nobody knows what's the matter with this,
I was gonna point out with the physicalize it, speaking to students, from multiple language backgrounds in the room, there's many ways that we communicate that are just physical, right? So I think sometimes exaggerating a gesture, using gesture, which is the beauty of theater, right, is that we can really explore the concept of gesture. And using that as part of your communication toolkit when you're working with students that are from different cultures can be really, really helpful.
Thank you. So, a lot of, and the routines, of course, and so these are. So you can go to the next one. So we are going to have some links there for you, and different things that that can be helpful. The New York City actually Office of Multilingual Learners have great resources that you're welcome to use in terms of lessons and stuff like that. We have a website, right?
It's called Teach with Give, and it has visual vocabulary for all of the arts. I don't know if you're familiar. So you could have an image, for example, like we're going to get in a circle, right? So you have the word, you have an image. They have it for theater, they have it for dance, they have it for music, for visual art. So you can download all of these images and use them in your lessons.
And this is in your, I don't know if people know, there was a QR code at the beginning, so it's all in your.
Yeah, it's all in there. Yeah, we'll put it at the end.
But it's a great resource called Teach with Give that is a part of one of these links.
And also something important to be aware of is when you have your language learners, there's a lot of things that might be going in their lives that you're not aware of. So keep on communicating with your social workers and
most of our kids live in temporary housing.
Yeah, temporary housing is very
All of them.
standard. It's all these things that happen. If you want to educate yourself on the resources that the city
It's a
has
lot
for
going
them,
on.
we also have a link to the resources for immigrant families.
Family separation.
Yeah, family separation, there's a lot of different things. So, so we usually have like things like a check-in. How you're feeling today is one of those routines that can be helpful. And also we have our community agreements, also as part of our routines, which are very helpful for students who just arrived to understand how things work here and what the expectations are. Very good. So you can go to the next one. All right, so this is one of our check-in routines that we have, right? So everybody just goes around. It doesn't have any language. You just do the you physicalize how you feel in that moment. That's one of the things that we do. And you go next one, yeah. That's an example of our community agreements. I like when the community agreements come from the students, and then we have them in different languages, and then we make a poster and everybody signs it. We have it in the board. When you have different classrooms, where you go from classroom to classroom, now I make the community agreements the Google Classroom image. So when you open the Google Classroom, you know that image that pops up?
Yeah.
That's the community agreements. So at least we carry with us. So I'm not carrying stuff everywhere I go, because different classrooms and different things can become very tricky. Go to the next one, very good. All right, so now we are very excited about this, and we're gonna work in groups of 4. And what are we going to do? Identify that go-to game that you usually use, and then have a conversation about how would you modify it, or how could it be facilitated in a productive way for language learners. Very good, very good. So should we start from here? Should we do 4? Here, 4 here, and then 4 here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you took them more together. Okay. Very good. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I have some specific questions.
Questions? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
If you want access to the slides, the QR code is right there. You can use that during your conversation.
All right, here's some paper. Do you like the paper? Here's some markers. And then we can do that.
I'm putting the QR code up to them. If they want to use it for their conversation.
Yes. Perfect. Very good. Oh,
taking forever to move. Where?
What about you? I'm trying to get this QR code.
Yeah, that's a sort of interesting one because there's only really, like, other than names, there's just one word. Right? So it's, I mean, it's kind of in terms of this kind of work, I can see that being useful as a game.
So like giving them agency, like, okay, let's come up with 3 sounds that we can say in doing test runs, being like, okay, we want blip, let's all say blip. And like everyone feels good with blip, we all like that, okay, let's vote that, let's put blip on the board, and then like something like that. What are we writing down? I think our ideas. Yes, so we pick a marker. Maybe they've got extra markers.
I see markers going around. Yeah.
That gets you so far, but also like. So I just go on the ground. I'm happy to. I can take it to the floor.
Whichever language
And so that's, I think, the biggest challenge that I have, not necessarily in like making the thing accessible, but like when I have to explain something, those pictures that he just showed me, like that's awesome, because like circle, great, but because that's really where there's challenge sometimes, and it's interesting how like the ways that we've like worked stuff out over time, like I don't know, I mean, eventually, like usually I have a little tiny first grade translator who's like this, and they kind of help me out, but I was noticing that like even when we came in, and he, we were doing the first activity, and he was switching back and forth from Spanish to English several times.
Right.
And
I had that same thought. I was like, but I can't do that.
I cannot speak Mandarin. I can say sit down. That's all I got.
Well, in Mandarin, it's Citywide.
Escúchame.
Yes.
Explain, and then also to the share.
It's
When
so
you're
hard
trying
to
to, yeah.
It's so hard
And
to
when they're trying to tell the lie to the class, and the kids are like, wait, what they say?
Right.
You know, that's a really
hard one. So do you turn that into a charades game? Like, what do you do?
Do we want to focus on that one?
We could, because it's challenging.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do it.
Should we do like challenges and modifications?
So I've used two weeks in a lot for like my dad.
Yes, bring it.
So they can really create that. And then, yeah, that's good. And then, what was I gonna say?
You were saying what's like the nature cafe thing.
Oh yeah, like having them like, I don't know what you call that game, like when you touch elbows or touch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then they can sort of discuss favorite color or favorite, you know.
Yeah, so that's like lower focus.
Yeah, lower focus, less stress. But conversation games in their own language too.
So if there's like, let's say like two kids that speak one language and the rest of the class doesn't, how do you then have them go to different partners?
I just feel like trying it out with like very low, like you said, like low stakes.
Like some ways that you could modify it could be you could do it slower and then speed it up. I feel like that could be a way that you could modify it. Start out slow and then speed it up. I definitely feel like the eye contact practice is a real piece of it because, like he was saying, that can be culturally challenging. Yeah. Especially in terms of along gender lines of like who looks you in the eye and who doesn't look you in the eye. So I think that is important to practice in a safe way where you're creating expectations of everyone's just going to look each other in the eyes and that's just how the game is going to be. So you have that expectation that that's what you have to do and you really have to do that so you know like who's going with it.
I feel like there's another way. Style. Two-style. Google Translate. Para. P-A-R-A. Jump. I should keep doing these verbs. Saltar. I wonder if that's the proper way to say it in this context.
I'm sure like an instruction.
Anyway, I really did. I have a moment where I was like, yeah.
Very simple, right? And I think that one you can also teach without necessarily having to use a lot of language. You can model it. Say that again? That's a great one. That's a great one too. Like they step out, someone, and then everyone's doing it. That's a really great one.
I love that. Do you know the one? I call it bippity boppity boo, where you point to people and they have to say boo before you finish.
Yes.
The other parts of that game are frozen images where you say like alligator or cow, and they make 3 people have to make the image. That's also could be a fun one.
I like your handwriting and design.
Yeah, it's great.
I love the porch. Yeah, the stars.
Did you teach high school?
Yeah.
Colors. They must love this.
Yeah, I like doing art in class with them. I like to encourage drawing, especially for students who like don't choose it. Like I'm not an artist type of thing. I'd be like, great, I love stick figures.
So pretty.
Yeah. At elementary, there's
the kids who are like, I love it, you know, they're like, get so excited to be the helper.
I did.
All right, everybody, let's go back into the circle. Let's go back into the circle. All right, thank you very much. So now we're going to be sharing, so we can all, more things will come up as we share all of these things. Very good. Who would like to start? Anybody would like to start?
We can start.
Sure.
So we went with the classic run, stop, jump, clap, which we tried to translate, but I don't know if we did a great job.
Which is tricky because if you have 20 languages in one, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we were talking about that and thinking about like using, like you did in the scripting, using a combination of languages for the instructions, and that can change, if it's a routine that you do, it could change each time you do it, this instruction is in this language, in this language. Having different students who are more comfortable with their language, like lead or teach those instructions in their language. And what else? What am I missing? Using images and gestures for the instructions instead, so you could play the game without any words, or only reading them, or only speaking them, or only listening to them, right? Because they're all different parts of language, and then like expanding vocabulary. So starting off with 4 words, and then expanding it to whether it's stage directions or north, south, east, west, or other whatever the vocabulary you need. Like it's all, whenever you're learning a piece of vocabulary, it's always incorporated in the game, and it's always done in 4 languages, and that's just like how you do vocabulary in your classroom.
Amazing. All right,
Someone in the previous workshop for that game said that if you don't have the space, instead of run, stop, you could do stand, sit, and just have them do it at their desk. So stand, sit, jump, hop, twirl, smack, clap. Yeah.
Very good. Should we go that way?
So this way.
She's saying.
Sorry.
I think we can all see it here, right?
First of all, shout out to our poster makers.
Yeah.
We talked about just some of the basic games we play in warm-ups, zip, zap, zop, and Juan brought up a really interesting point that sometimes it's good with nonsense words because it's sort of equalizing, but also it can be confusing if you're looking for meaning. So you could replace these words with anything, right? They could be greetings, they could be emotions, it could be a mix of languages. Counting circle where it's the shakedown, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, making it even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or using another language. Spaghetti, we play this in another one, but the repetition of the word, and then what is it? Oh, phrases with emotions. You could use emojis, just holding up emojis so students could come in and everybody knows the same word to say, so it's always consistent. What are you doing? Or what's in the box? Those improv games where it's all pantomime, so there's really no language at all. Even though, what are you doing does have language, but you could again have a list of actions on the board so students can pick from that. And then pass the face, sort of nonverbal passing around the circle so that, again, it's nonverbal. And pass the clap, like with no words. Yeah.
Wonderful. And just the importance of modeling.
Yeah.
And all of these things, right? The zip zap zop you do it for people, and then we can do it, right? It's really, really, really helpful.
And spaghetti, just for folks who are unfamiliar with that one, is that you have to say the word, but you say it with different emotions. So you might say spaghetti angry or say spaghetti sad. You have the image to help the students decide.
You can have the whole crew do it all together, or people step forward.
Right. I did also think, as we were reading ours, that if you are trying to teach language, like vocabulary in specific context, a really great activity would be keep the blank, where you stand in a circle and someone steps in and says, "I'm a tree." Someone says and steps, "I'm the bird." Someone says, "I'm a worm." And then someone from the outside of the circle says, "Keep the worm." And then you create a new trio of things in a new space. That's a little bit more language focused, but if the students are learning in a unit in their English class, or if you are their language teacher and they're learning vocabulary for the classroom or vocabulary for the home, then that would really work, because then they would have to sort of act out and model the table and the chairs and the fork, and that would be a great way to activate that if you know what they're learning and where they are.
I've had teaching artists use what are you doing in an arts integration model where, this was for a science class where it's like, they were learning about ecologies, and so it's like, what do you need to survive in a desert? And so all of the activities have to be about like the things that you would need in order to survive in a desert or survive in a rainforest. But it could be like, what are you doing when you go camping? What are you doing when you go to the supermarket? So like you can pick a setting, and then the actions have to happen in that setting, which might help the students as well.
Also, at the same point, to add, taking off the weight of you being an ENL teacher, because we are ENL teachers, so we always think of that as well. How can we use this to learn language? Your job is not to teach them English. Your job is to make their lives beautiful through the power of theater. It's much more important than that. Very good. Should we go to the next one?
We chose to focus on 2 truths and a lie, and laid out the challenges that we had experienced. It's a hard to explain game when you have ANLs, and when a student is sharing their 2 truths and 1 lie, the translation can get a little bit clunky, you know, and the modifications, some of them that we discussed, were having students write or draw their submissions, so that they can share it more easily and be more prepared when it's time to share. Having a bilingual student helper who can go up on stage or in front of the class with the student that's sharing, or work in groups, and then the group gets to choose a representative. Someone shared that they had done this in their class, and it was a way of like finding the best 2 truths and a lie for the class so that they could trick the class, and so working in groups to choose a representative to perform it.
We focused on the game, What Are You Doing? And we talked about different modifications, and one of them is that they can do the actual action that the person, the other partner, suggests, so that it's more of like a guessing game, like charades, so that they can see, like, say the action that they see rather than thinking of a new action. And we also discussed, it's not on the poster, but like they could use a picture and like hold up a picture or choose from a range of pictures to decide what actions to do.
And it can also, I feel like, just be played in Spanish. It's like
Yeah.
they can, because it's about, the lesson is physicalizing an action, so like they can do that.
We've done it where they do, like it's charades kind of style, really different characters from a play. So you just get the picture, and you have to, communicate that, who that person is, without any words, and it's helpful and fun.
We got asked to focus on Tableau because our poster was all over the place. But I'm really glad we did, because I was like, oh yeah, Tableau, it's nonverbal, great, that's easy. But thinking about the actual like structure of how do you make sure everyone can be successful with it was really helpful, I think. So we talked about like different methods, so like having like visuals or task cards to go along with it, so not just like, hey, make a picture of the beach, but like, here is a picture of the beach, you're gonna do the picture of the beach. Then having some student choice in like what they do could be another option. Having like mixed ability groups, so like sometimes it's just like, hey, get a group of 4, but like intentional grouping for that. Then having like categories, so like if it's something like I do where like you have to guess what your classmates have made, like having a category to guess within, so it's not a free-for-all. Like, did you want to add anything to that?
Just with Tableau, we were talking about like how to also incorporate language instead of it just being pantomime too. Is like yesterday with my 2nd graders, we started one. Like, I was a baseball player, and then so I was just standing there, and like, I know wait time is like very agonizing, but so they started, you know what I mean, and like being theater teachers is great because they were all shouting and it didn't matter. So like, you know, like they were shouting out like, someone give me the picture, you know what I mean? And then, you know, somebody it's automatically translated like, Manzo, you know, and then somebody was like, well, this needs a catcher. And I just thought it was like a beautiful, like organic, like flow of language that just getting them started was a great way with Tableau. And then we froze and took a picture and they loved that. So I think that can really work in a lot of different ways.
That's great, and that makes me think of this concept of we, in a task like the Tableau that, you know, requires a lot of different things, starting with low content.
Yeah.
So I do holidays as pictures of actual New Year's. Let's do New Year's, what does that look like, right? Low content, and then you can be changing from, you know, New Year's, or simple things like that, or the beach, the park, all these things, and you go into sadness, or like all these different things, or the themes of the play, or blah, blah, blah. And then that helps us to stage a scene at one point.
But similarly where it's like, it's a family portrait, and you say, you are the happy family, you are the jealous family, 1, 2, 3, pose, and everyone, like you get a group of 5, and they have to pose as that family.
Well, that's a great idea.
And then the feelings can be your concepts somewhere, right?
Yeah. We do a lot of Messi and Ronaldo. Like, how does, you know, they bring out the emotion with that.
Yeah.
Then they have a fight.
And also, that also makes me think of something, when we are asking, because we have a youth theater group, so we make our own plays. Be mindful of how much they're willing to share, how much as a teacher we have the power to press them, to be like, oh, you have trauma? Tell me about it. What's the word that you remember? Let's make a tableau. Are you really communicating what happened to you? So it's like, ugh. So especially with language learners, people that are coming as immigrants, you know, the things that we've gone through, how much are we praying? Because that's super interesting for us as directors, as the director of a play, right? As a director, you want to know, you want to build your character, like give me more. But then at the same time, the emotional needs that people have, and we're not, you know, careful with that, yeah. Thank you. Yes.
It was a popular theme today to talk about, but Zip Zap Zop, and I understand why it was popular because it can be very accessible and very adaptable. Our group talked about how Z can be a difficult sound for some English language learners, and so just again allowing the students to come up with sounds that they feel are accessible, and then having the group can vote on it, and then just using some of the tools that you brought up on the board about like really chunking the directions, making them so short. So like the objectives are eye contact and this motion, and the group practicing those, and then you can easily translate both of those into multiple languages, modeling with a small group, repetition, bringing it into class a lot of times, so it's a part of your just daily habits, and then somebody also brought up rotating languages, so it doesn't always have to be maybe the predominant language in the group, it could be other languages, and also, or even just adapting it for like somebody like the holidays, like fa la la, or something like that.
Fantastic. Something also that resonated with me, we were talking about something about like, well, let's talk about making pizza. Can we all make pizza? And then it's like thinking about the fact that where I come from, there's no pizza. So being also mindful of all those references and how culturally aware are you of everything happening could be a challenge. But anyway, so what we hope is that this is not, you know, making it look like it's impossible to teach language learners, or making it look like, you know, we are a problem in your classroom, because we're not. We can be an asset if, you know, if don't look at us like another issue that you have to deal with in your job, right? It's like, you know, as long as, you know, what is our purpose as teachers? Like how can we make sure that that we in our classrooms we don't promote those systematic forms of oppression that we live within, right? How can we make a change? And we have the power to do that as theater teachers, because if it wasn't for theater, I would not be alive. So we can actually do that for our kids, which is really special. Yes?
I also think that we can be receivers. let them teach us. The students love to hear my Spanish accent. So I think that if we're open to their culture, it could be a two-way.
Right.
And I feel that that's very rich for them too, because they get to communicate something important to them, to us, and the rest of the class.
And also for us, I think that theater comes from Europe and the United States. And there's theater somewhere else. So opening the door for other people to share that with us, I think, it's also very important. I think. Yes, sir. Dale, everybody, this is our amazing Dale. Hello. Hi.
We actually only have 1 minute left until this session is over. But just kind of speaking from an alternate viewpoint, I teach high school theater at a performing arts high school, but we are all having rising numbers of non-English speakers come into our room. And I would ask any of you, in looking at your rubric, how many 4s require that it be in English? They can do a scene. They can do a monologue. You might not want to do a monologue in French if you've never done it, but if you can get the monologue they want to do, translate it to English so you understand the emotional beats they're going to play, let them speak in their native language. You're not looking for fluency, you're looking for emotional honesty, physicality, vocalization, objective. You can see that whether they're speaking English or not. So a lot of this is about language acquisition and helping with language acquisition, but they can design a portfolio of a play. You can give them a scene that you know what it says, but now it's in their native language, and ask them to draw that ground plan. You can give them a scene that's in their native language and ask them to design the costume. None of that requires fluency. And then you can provide written feedback that you've translated into their native language. Provide them a rubric identical to every other student's rubric, just translated into their native language so they understand the expectations as well. So it does create more work for you the first couple of times, and then if you've got it in Google Docs, you've already got the translations just sitting there to print out. But I think it's worth it, because lots of teachers are like, oh, but they don't speak English, so how are they supposed to perform a whole monologue? But when you look at it, is the English really what you're grading them on? Because then wouldn't your other students all just pass because they speak it? So be flexible in when you actually need it to be in your native language, and when it could work just as well in theirs.
The one last thing I want to share too, as someone who is an English language learner, just pointing out at the strategies that we've talked about today, right? So like chunking it, modeling it, pacing yourself, being more visual. Strategies for working with English language learners are just good teaching strategies, right? And so this is not about taking something radically different from what you would be doing in your classroom to work with this particular population. It's just good teaching strategies for everyone. So if you make a classroom that's inclusive of English language learners, it's inclusive of all students. So that's just something else to keep in mind.
My email and our emails will be there also on the slideshow if you ever need it. I'm going to put it down. If you have any questions, anything at any time, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.